Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Richard Sachs, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College, and you're listening to Voices of Rio. I am delighted today to have Dr. Rose Isgrigg, who's an Assistant Professor of Biology here. Rose received her associate's degree from Elizabethtown Community College, her bachelor's degree of University of Kentucky. I think I heard "Go Blue" in the background there by someone. Go Big Blue. Okay, sorry.
Michigan's Go Blue.
I'm trying. And her master's and PhD from the University of Louisville. Rose teaches a number of courses for us here, from animal behavior and plants and people to principles of biology. But we're going to be talking about Appalachian wildflowers this afternoon. Dr. Isgrigg, welcome to the show. And can you tell us how this interest developed? And you've got some beautiful pictures for us, I know.
It was a course I took at the University of Louisville, Dr. Wiedemann's Spring Flora. And what differs from we teach a course here called Ohio Flora, and it's usually taught in the fall. But our Spring Flora are very unique to the Appalachian and actually Southeast China, and because they're found nowhere else. We have a remarkable number of orchids and some very rare flowers, and these are flowers that can't be collected without permits. They're they're rare. I was Dr. Wiedemann, my professor at University of Louisville, gave us a strict warning that we were not to collect the flowers. We were to take pictures or to draw them or some kind of artistic rendition showing that the flowers were identified as such. And these flowers, because they can't be collected, they're very specific to the soils in which they grow, which is our mountain range and into the woodlands of the Appalachians and a little bit westward. The range is a little further than most because of the Ozarks in Missouri and Arkansas. They have some of the same flowers, not quite the same, but and I've gone to Canada, and up in Canada they have our flowers, our April flowers. They're in August, so it's kind of. But on this class I took, I just fell in love with these slipper orchids, and wanted to find them all. There's many out there. There's pink, there's yellow, there's different variations of white ones, and some very special ones. The yellow lady slippers. These two lady slippers are actually found in Clear Creek Park, and it's very rare, actually even more, for the yellow ones to be here. They like the limestone soils.
Okay. And
they're a real treat. And you see that it's got a cage around them. The Clear Creek Rangers keep people from pulling them.
Wow.
And they've been there.
And pink doesn't really describe that. I mean, that's gorgeous. That's fuchsia or something.
Yeah.
It's better than just pink.
And these are everywhere. And the showy orchis is the one on the right. I took that one, and the deer nibble on it.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's and it's a little pink and white one. It's not the best picture I've ever taken, but then you have the fire pinks, which is a carnation, actually.
Now, do the deer nibble on the flowers or the leaves?
Yes,
or
actually,
both?
That's another story. One of the things when I learned in my course at University of Louisville, there was a large 14,000 acre nature preserve there, and when I was a kid, we'd go and there were lots of deer, and they had eaten everything in the forest floor, and they thought the wildflowers were gone. And so when the wildlife management people came in and started managing the deer herds, they came back.
Okay.
And they came back the year I worked there, and found many populations, and there were even more. The yellow lady slippers and just the rare. And we thought they were gone, and they kept coming up. We found a new population every spring.
So do these flowers stay in bloom throughout the summer,
No.
or is it mostly spring, or
No,
or
it's
what?
spring. They're up for about 3 weeks.
Oh, is that
Depends
all?
on the weather,
Okay.
and they show up right now. if you went to the Hocking Hills, you would probably see the lady slippers.
Okay.
And the showy lady slipper is a bog plant. That's at Cedar Bog. It's near Delaware.
Sure.
And you'll see that one a little bit later in May. And the Cedar Bog, that's a wetland, and that is absolutely beautiful. And the butterflies and dragonflies that you see there are just, it's just the whole package.
Yeah.
But the showy lady slipper is the tallest one and the rarest one, and it's just a huge slipper. The pictures, I don't have anything to scale because I would have had to gone in about knee deep in bog sludge to get close to one, which you don't want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
So that it's almost. I don't know if you've ever known birders.
I actually have.
They're very avid.
I've been backpacking my whole life, and it seems like it's mostly older people. And
They're
throughout my life, yeah, I've seen people. They have the little glasses
and you'll see that with wildflower, the spring wildflower
really?
people.
Okay.
Yeah, spring wildflower is different than the other wildflowers.
Okay.
And when you get the spring wildflower bug, you've got to see them all. I've got to go to my sites and see how they're doing, and I'm going to go see the. Oh, this is the picture that they're showing now is at Clear Creek Park. It's at the on your way to the Hocking Hills. It's a Metro Parks, and Leaning Lena is this gigantic boulder that's fallen off the ridge, and it's just covered with columbine.
Huh.
And that's columbine up close on the.
Yeah.
On the
Columbine's just beautiful. I know some of our readers will remember in 1999 the shootings at Columbine High School, and I spent much of the next decade as a dean at a state college in Colorado, and on the sides of computers at almost every state college there was a big Columbine leaf, and underneath it said, "We are all Columbine." And it was very moving that people took that. But I mean, to me, that's my frame of reference as a school administrator. But again, Columbine is the state flower of Colorado, and you do see it in the wild there.
It's absolutely beautiful.
But I didn't realize we had them
We
here
have them
in
here.
Appalachia.
We have them here, and they'll grow on rocks. They grow pretty well. There's another, I can't remember the name of the private park just east of Clear Creek, and they were collecting columbine seed pods
Oh, really? Okay.
and trying to get them started on the rocks there, or in the soil. And I said, well, we'll try them on the rocks. I haven't been there to see if they succeeded. It's been a few years. It might take, and that's another thing about those spring wildflowers, like the showy, the pink, the yellow lady slippers, all the lady slippers. It takes 7 years from seed to get 7 years of growth to get that bloom, that first bloom.
Wow. Huh.
So
And then do the flowers go to seed then after if they're not
yes,
picked?
you'll get a seed head. It looks like a little football
Okay.
at the tip, and probably ready into June or early July. And they break open, and the seeds are like dust particles.
Yeah.
And they just blow, and I believe they're bee pollinated. The ones that I sat and observed were.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they're.
Okay. So I've been a backpacker and a hiker for 40 years, and one thing I really like to do, and it's often bothered family and friends, is I love hiking the same place again and again and again because it changes as the season goes on. And when I lived in Albuquerque, I would hike Sandia Peak, and it would be dry for weeks, and then suddenly we'd get like 20 minutes of rain. And the next weekend, all of these wildflowers, especially the cactus, would bloom. And it would almost be like a different place.
Right,
and that's why I've actually taught courses called ecotexts when I was in New Mexico and Colorado. And I would tell the students, you have to observe the same place for the 4 months of the term. And take pictures or make drawings and then just chart it. And you have to chart at least once a week that you've seen it. And to me, that's what's wonderful. I mean, my friends often say, oh, you're so boring, you do the same things, but it's always different. And I feel as a city kid, it makes me comfortable knowing where I am in the woods and seeing how things change over time.
Oh, and the birds.
Yeah.
Different stages
Okay.
of bird, the staking out of their territories, and then the nesting, and then the feeding, and then the fledging, and then getting ready for winter.
So do you see a difference then if we have a really wet or really warm or really cold summer in terms of the proliferation of wildflowers?
For the spring ones, no. It's pretty much
Because it's snow melt then, and so
how early
yeah,
the spring
yeah.
comes, and if there's a really bad frost in between. But I would say this year they will be a little early. Give or take a couple of weeks.
Because we didn't have a real bad
Right,
winter.
right.
Okay, that's interesting.
And if we have a really bad winter, we'd be waiting another week or so
Yeah.
to see some of them.
Well, even though we're a partially public institution, I am not at all associated with any state parks or local parks, but I will say Hocking Hills is just gorgeous. And when I have friends from the East and West Coast visit, I try to take them up there, and they go, this looks like Vermont. You know, it's not their association. Ohio, they think is, I don't know, I guess cornfields or something, but it's just absolutely beautiful. And oh my gosh, Jack in the Pulpit, you have to talk about this.
Oh yeah, the Jack in the Pulpit. Now this is in Conkle's Hollow. When people think of Hocking Hills, they think Old Man's Cave. That's where, let's
Right.
go to Old Man. Old Man's Cave has got a lot of traffic.
It does,
Conkle's Hollow and Ash Cave have Jack in the Pulpits, and they have the lady slippers, and they've got the Dutchman's breeches and squirrel corn, which looks like the Dutchman's breeches, but they're the Dutchman's breeches like little pants hanging on a clothesline. And my spring is not complete until I see one of those, and they're usually
Yeah.
the end of April. They're an earlier one.
See, in English class, we call that imagery. That does look like it
And
looks
the
like
squirrel-
breeches. I'm not sure what a Dutchman's breeches is, but okay.
I guess because they've got pantaloon.
Pantaloon kind of thing, yeah.
And the squirrel corn just looks like the same things, the same sort of plant, but the flower itself looks like a piece of corn. I didn't take a picture of that one.
Yeah.
But they're,
Yeah.
and then there's trillium,
Yeah.
there's the white trillium, there's several species of trilliums,
Yeah.
and there's a red one and then the white ones. And you see these along the roadways are just gorgeous.
Yeah. Mike, can you go back to Jack in the Pulpit? Is it easy for you? Okay, there you go. Okay. I have to tell this high school story, and I can do this because my wife never watches the show. So when I was a kid growing up outside Cleveland, we joined Holden Arboretum, which is a beautiful arboretum in Lake County. And I took a tour there with a naturalist, and she showed us Jack in the Pulpit, and I'll let you talk about the plant in a minute. So the next weekend, I'm dating this girl, Marcy, and I say, let's go out to Holden Arboretum. And I took her on the same path and showed her Jack in the Pulpit and explained the plant. And I think I got a kiss or two out of that. She was very impressed with me for that. So that's my Jack in the Pulpit story. And that was PG-13, wasn't it? We're okay on that. But if you see how the plant is, it's like a little guy in a pulpit. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, that's what it is. The reproductive parts of is Jack inside the
Right.
petals, and you get fused petals and probably fly pollinated.
Okay.
Because they're not very scented at all. But that's the kind of flower arrangement that you would see. Flies crawling into, or beetles,
Okay.
or something.
I remember the inside would be wet, and it would often have, it looked like
they'll go down and
dead
get-
bugs or something
oh,
like
yeah.
that in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And they're all along. If you go to the Hocking Hills, again, they're probably early May, late April.
Okay.
And if you go now, you'll see the same things with the seed heads on them. They were just big red berry-looking things.
Okay.
And so those are Jack in the Pulpits,
Yeah.
and they like that damp creek bottom.
Okay.
And Conkle's Hollow and Ash Cave are definitely the wildflower places to go to.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's fascinating. So, to what degree? And I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this, but we've all heard about the drop in the number of bees and how significant are bees to the pollination of these flowers, and have we seen any changes yet? Because I know in certain parts of the country they're very concerned about that.
The bigger concern are the agricultural crops.
I
Just
see.
about everything except for corn that we eat is bee pollinated.
Okay.
And there are going to hand pollinating using brushes and things, and hauling bees in on trucks.
I've heard about that because there was a bad accident in the Southwest a few years ago with
That
a
was
guy
a-
who was hauling bees from one farm to another because they needed them to pollinate.
These flowers, we still have a lot of native bees too. A lot of the bee crash has been the European honeybees, which are imported, but we still need the bees, and any of those I can't remember the nicotinoids or whatever, the pesticides. Pesticides are pretty bad, and probably maybe a concern with some of the GMOs too, because they've got a gene bred into them that is insecticidal, and it's used to kill the rootworm on corn. But the corn doesn't just put its growth into the roots. It's also put growth into pollen and so anything that gets hold of that pollen is going to be exposed to that insecticide.
Sure.
And a lot of butterfly crashes and then some of its habitat.
Yeah.
We just
Well, you see how everything's kind of interconnected,
Oh, yeah.
and I know if you've ever driven the Ohio Turnpike from Cleveland to the Indiana border, it seems like there's nothing but corn on both sides, and unfortunately that's also the shallowest part of Lake Erie, so everything floats down into the Maumee River, goes into Lake Erie, and you have these huge algae blooms now because Lake Erie being the shallowest Great Lake, it's only 30 to 40 feet. It's 200 feet over by Buffalo, but when you have 30 feet of water and you have all those insecticides from those farms going in, you're going to get algae blooms. Yeah.
And animal waste. We've got
that's a good point.
factory farming, the beef and poultry. They don't raise them like they used to. They just put them in these big houses and just mountains of refuse that come out of those barns, and they don't. There's nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
And so it washes away.
Yeah. So as I was driving into work on 588 a couple days ago, I see an older man, and I thought he was getting mail out of a mailbox, but he was actually cutting lilacs. And then I noticed his car was a little bit further up, and the lilacs were just blooming at the side of the road. What do you teach your students? And I thought that was cool. He's going to bring that home to his girlfriend or wife, and then he'll be a hero. And they were beautiful. They were blue and white. And I don't know whose property it was, if it was just right away or if it was somebody's property there. But what do you share with your students as a biology professor, and what can the rest of us share with the young people in terms of treading lightly, when we go out? Because there always is a temptation. I remember when I was backpacking in high school, some of my buddies would just, grab a leaf and tear it up, and then grab another leaf and tear it up, and I'm going, just walk through the woods. Like, you don't have to, come through here and tear things up, So what would be your best practices in those kinds of things?
Well, again, I referred to the Ken Burns National Parks, and in our department we have ecology, we have wildlife, and we're kind of the same, but we're different. Just as different as John Muir was. John Muir was from even Teddy Roosevelt. John Muir wanted to protect it and leave it alone, and Teddy Roosevelt was collecting.
And where's Gifford Pinchot in that?
Gifford Pinchot was a wise use.
Okay.
And he and Muir were always at odds, because Gifford Pinchot used wise use, let's manage it. And there is a medium, because a lot of people don't realize that ecology and wildlife management is a little different. You've got to have, like I said about the nature preserve I worked at, the deer were eating everything until the wildlife managers came in, and they made the deer population healthier by reducing it. They managed that population, and it brought back the wildflowers. It brought back the shrubs. It brought back everything that they had gnawed down. And so there is a nice healthy medium, and that's some of the problems in trying to, when I tell students things, when you have a nature preserve, stay on the path, because when you walk, you're walking on somebody else's house. It might be a spider or bugs, but they're important too.
Right.
And then some of the national parks, the Wayne National Forest has a horse path, and they should stay on their horse path because the horses can do damage. And then the all-terrain vehicle things, those just do a lot of destruction.
Sure.
And they want more and more of that, but it's really not protecting nature.
Right.
It's just being out in it, kind of.
Yeah, sure.
So I tell them, when you see the wildflowers, you shouldn't pick them unless, like the big wall of Trillium, there's still really no reason, unless you wanted to press one as a memory or something, and there were hundreds of them. If there's less than 20, you definitely don't pick anything.
Oh, okay.
So you want to leave a good healthy population. So the trilliums are pretty ubiquitous in the spring, and they're there for about a week or 10 days, and then they're gone. And they're a delight to run across, especially when you're driving. And there's the showy. I would never collect one of those because they need to be there and utilize their flowers. Now the pitcher plants, that's another those are bog plants, and they're native around here. You'd think that they're like down in Florida, but a lot of the Michigan's got a lot of pitcher plants.
I've been told we have to call that the state up north here.
Oh, the state up north.
As somebody
okay.
with 2 Michigan degrees, that's what they're telling me anyway. So I'm trying to fit
I have to tolerate that because my husband's got a degree from Michigan too.
Okay. Oh, I know that. Yeah, no, I've met him. Yeah, sure. Wow, that's beautiful.
The Arca Appalachia has a little. They're a little bit sooner, and it is absolutely beautiful. It's a little hillier than the Hocking Hills, but it is absolutely beautiful.
And where's that located?
It's down in southeast of here.
Okay.
Down past. Oh goodness.
Down into West Virginia then? Or?
Oh no, it's in Ohio.
Oh, it's still in Ohio.
It's
I've never heard of it.
Scioto County, maybe a little bit around.
Okay.
Right in
Okay, so
Adams.
southwest of here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Or southwest.
Okay.
Southeast.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Joaquina is that nature preserve and there's the Cecil Trillium. That's another, or Toad Trillium. I can't remember which one. And they have beaver dams. It's a smaller, and that one is maintained by the Historical Society of Ohio.
Okay.
And they do a nice job with that too. A lot of wildflowers.
Great. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Do you want to talk about the books that you brought in
These
today?
are the books I carry with me. These are ones that I got when I was taking the class at the University of Louisville. And the Peterson Field Guides and the Newcombs are wonderful, but this one is a Wharton and Barber. It's got the pictures, and so you can have an idea. Dr. Wharton actually took lots of pictures, and I go back to this if I get stuck on descriptions, because you have to know your plant parts to do the descriptions. Sure. And then the Petersons and Newcombs are line drawings too, so you don't get to see the color. And this is for the shrubs and of Kentucky. It's here too. You have the same plants here, and all of those odd shrubs that keep showing up on the roadsides and things.
Well, shrubs don't know geopolitical boundaries.
No. So as long as it's in the Appalachian part,
sure.
so in most of Kentucky, most southeast Ohio, and on up the mountains, we're going to have a lot of the same flora.
Right. So you've made a career of being a biology professor. For young people and students in the audience, if they enjoy wildflowers and walking through the woods as much as we do, what kinds of other professions besides being a high school teacher or a college biology professor might they have and still be able to stay around this and hopefully preserve them for future generations too?
Well, there's the park systems.
Sure.
You can be a botanist or a naturalist at state, national, or even a private park. I was an assistant naturalist at Bernheim Forest, which was south of Louisville, and a lot of metro parks everywhere. You can there's botanical societies. The Audubon Society keeps camps, and they hire people, and there's nature centers all over.
Yeah.
And anywhere that there's a park, even something the Adina Mansion in Chillicothe, they have a botanist there.
Yeah.
So they have to keep the gardens and preserve some of the ancient the pioneer flowers.
Well, it's interesting. Sometimes there are intended consequences of our actions. Sometimes there are unintended consequences. When I was a kid in the 60s growing up in Shaker Heights, they were going to put a freeway right through Shaker Heights to go from downtown to 271. It was going to be called the Clark Freeway. And so what Shaker did is they took the Shaker Lakes and they made it into a nature center. And there's a federal law saying you cannot build an interstate through a nature center. So to this day now, it's 50 years old now, 45 years old, is Shaker Lakes Nature Center. And my younger kids, Aiden and Gareth, we belong to the Shaker Lakes Nature Center, and you can actually do birthday parties there that are not cheap, but part of it is taking a walk with a naturalist.
Sure.
And it's so nice. If you've ever taken little kids to like Chuck E. Cheese for a birthday party, and I will never do that again. I don't care how much money you pay for me. I will never go inside a Chuck E. Cheese for love or money. But it is such a delightful way, and the parents always say, this is so wonderful. We didn't realize it was an option.
A bunch of volunteers at the Hocking Hills that they're just wildflower enthusiasts. This is their hobby, and they show up on Saturday mornings. They're just volunteers.
Like a museum docent, taking you around a museum. Yeah, what a great idea. Well, this has been really special. Thank you so much for sharing this with our community here and with the TV community. And thank you very much. And Dr. Rose Isgrigg teaches biology here at University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College. And we have a lot of regular full-time students, and we also have people from the community who just come in to take an interesting class. And personally, I would love to take your plants and people class or your animal behavior class. I think that would be loads of fun.
Okay. I'll be looking for you.
Okay, there's a commitment. Thanks very much. Take care.